God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So, Mr. Pinto is unable to be here this evening, so I will be standing in as your MC. And I don't do this often, so bear with me. Dr. Gallagher will be running this meeting, and hopefully it's gonna go quick and deep. Where do you want to start?
So tonight we have sort of two mini presentations. The first one I'm going to kick off. This is a presentation on the district's focus on wellness. And I was lucky enough to be able to participate in the wellness committee for the district this year. But what I'm summarizing tonight is the work of our whole team, and especially our PBS folks who are here tonight. I'm going to address two components of wellness in our district are prevention and intervention. I'll speak about the prevention aspects, and Dr. Mercacci will speak about the intervention aspects. So, just as a little background, I think in the world that we all live in, there's definitely increased focus on wellness. There's a great saying by the Maasai tribe in Africa, when they greet each other, they don't say hello, they say, and how are the children? And the response to that is all the children are well. What a great way to say that the reflection of the success of a community is based on the health of the children and the people most vulnerable. So this increased focus on wellness here is really a result of a few things. I think in general, we live in an anxious age. We hear that all the time. There's certainly been an increase in mental health issues globally, and our district is no different. What is different, and something we're proud of here, is that we have long had a focus on the whole child, making sure that we focus on children who grow in health and mind and body. And so it kind of goes along with that we really have a focus on wellness and maybe articulate wellness in a more concrete way than we have in past years. So the question we've asked ourselves this year on the wellness committee is what can we do to add to our continuum of supports? And as I said to you, there's two kind of angles to this. First is prevention and skills development. I think that's the one that's a little new to schools. And then the second is intervention. Prevention and skills development kind of goes, all of the things that we do to develop healthy mindsets, to have beautiful school environments that are joyful and supportive, places where children feel like they belong, and the connection between physical and mental wellness, which is certainly something new. It was not that way when I was growing up. And then the intervention consists of two different types: in-school support and external support through our partners. And we're really trying to delineate those two things a little more clearly because they've gotten mixed together a lot over the past few years, and I think there's good reason to kind of delineate what that looks like. And Dr. Mercacci will talk a little bit more about that. So in terms of our prevention, I won't read this all to you, but we do many things in partnerships with the PTA, in terms of staff development. We have a dedicated wellness committee that plans things like wellness fairs. We have beautiful instructional programs in PE and health, SEL programs. We do yoga and mindfulness programs for the younger grades. And we've really kind of looked at this as a whole district. How do we help students develop healthy mindsets and really be successful and feel like they belong to a community? We do that also through cultivating a positive school environment. There's some examples there, but there are many ways that we look to do that so that our kids feel like they're in a place that's joyful and that's helping them to become independent adults. We make lots of connections between physical and mental wellness. We have a great school nutrition program, a Farm to Table initiative. Mr. Swan has a student advisory board now at every school. They came up with a cute name for them, the snacks. They're our taste testers who decide if things go on the menu or not. We have beautiful, robust athletic programs. Our kindergarten program is actually famous around the state on Wonder Garden and focus on nature and play. And we really intentionally build things that help cultivate that mind-body connection in students, even at a very young age. Dr. Mercacci, I want you to talk a little bit about the two levels of intervention.
So in terms of our intervention, within you can define it as both in-school interventions and the external supports as well. In school, beyond the teachers, the teaching assistants, the cafeteria staff, all the people that connect with our students, when our students need more support from the school, they can seek out our school counselors, our psychologists, our social workers, even our nurses. They can have frequent visits from students, and they're also getting additional supports or specific supports from those individuals. It's meant to be short-term, it's meant to be specific, and then if they need more long-term support, more specific support, that's when we go and we move towards the external. Schools are meant to be school-related issues. How do I help assist children to be able to make it through their day, to develop skills, to be able to manage their day? Anything that is long-term, that's when we start to talk about an external support for our students. And some of those external supports are referral sources. So we have a relationship with Northwell. We've established that relationship. That is an external support. While it's in our buildings, it's now an external support. It was meant to be able to hand off families to more supportive services outside of the school, more intensive supports. We have had a relationship with Reach as well. That's an external support. That's a referral source as well. They have many supports for families, and that would also be a referral. So that's more long-term, more intensive support. And then, of course, there are private practitioners, mental health supports, clinical social workers, clinical psychologists, mental health professionals, the list goes on. And that would be private therapy, private supports. And our team really has worked with families to try and utilize their insurance carriers, because not every insurance has, that specific criteria. So we try to work with families to connect them to therapists that will support them, either through insurance, sliding scales, if it is an out-of-pocket expense, but that's more external.
So in our PPS budget tonight and in our budget presentations in the past few weeks, we've already talked about some additions to preventative supports, additional sports teams, additional programming that help with cultivating that positive school environment and providing some of the additional resources in the preventative side. Tonight, we're also going to talk about, and we mentioned this, we'd like to propose for next year that we create a wellness center at our high school. And again, don't yell at me for the pretty picture. I like playing with AI. It probably won't look like that. But we want to have a space in the building at the high school that becomes kind of a hub for wellness programming, preventative wellness programming at the high school. We envision that place as being, filled with things that can help students if they're having an anxious moment, if they just need a space to, take a breath, relax, calm themselves down, and do, some breathing exercises or some of the mindfulness techniques that they've been taught. We also, though, and it'll be supervised by a staff member, we also want that place to become a hub of wellness activities at the high school and even for the district. When we talked about this with the high school team, Andy Smith, our new principal, said, well, it's like a wellness movement. And I love that kind of idea that, we want to make it cool for kids to think about wellness and talk about wellness. The members of the wellness committee who advocated for this a few weeks ago even addressed that when they were here, that it's not always regarded as cool. But we want our kids to look at that and say, this is pretty cool. We envision programs like a wellness walk around the pond. We have a beautiful pathway around the pond. We could easily put some signage there and make it like more of a meditative space. We'd like to bring in our outside partners to have them do workshops on specific areas, intervention areas, education areas rather, that students and parents even might be interested in. We see those things happening after school as well. And finally, we want to connect to our in-school supports, our intervention partners, and also to our outside supports in a more seamless process. So our social workers, psychologists may cycle through this center as well. But again, we see this more on the preventative side, not the intervention side. Some additional possibilities, I talked about this a little bit. We love to create, wellness walks and common spaces even at our other buildings. I know a lot of our elementary classrooms, when I go into them, they have a beautiful little calming space in the corner with a beanbag chair and a fidget toy or something that if a child is having a moment, they can kind of use to calm themselves down. We see things like potentially mini classes in yoga, tai chi, art, music therapy, things that people would like to engage in that support overall well-being. Our PTA is working with members of our wellness committee this year to present a book talk on the anxious generation, leading up to the mental health forum, which the PTA has sponsored for years. We think this is a great model, and we maybe see this happening more frequently in coming years. And if you haven't seen the flyer for this, scan that QR code to leave and sign up. I think it's going to really be, and the book, if you haven't read it, is really meaningful. We've already expanded our community gardening, again, that connection, physical and mental wellness, and we're expanding our farm to table initiative with some hydroponics, which we actually hope to get in place this year. For those of you who don't know, we cannot grow things in the ground and serve them in our cafeteria because there are such stringent rules around potential soil contamination for school cafeterias. In your house, you can do that. But in a hydroponic garden, because there's no pesticides, no potential runoff, nothing that can contaminate those plants, we can serve that produce in our cafeteria. And apparently, I did not know this, but hydroponic gardens produce like 40 times the yield of your own backyard garden. So, and they're unbelievably cool besides. So having students grow their own food, and then I saw a school in Suffolk County that did this, and the kids were having lettuce parties, little tiny kids. Again, trying to stress that connection to overall wellness for our kids and making wellness cool again. Dr. Vinkachi will discuss some proposed additions to interventions.
So proposing that we add an additional psychologist as a district-wide position for the department. The intent there is to look at what the needs are across the district and assign that individual to help support the buildings that are seeing an overflow of assessments and meetings and so forth, because then that puts a strain on whether or not the PPS staff can then be actively involved with interventions with students. So I'm asking for additional position. As well as that, we're taking a look at building more of our community partnerships to help facilitate connections with therapists. I know that many families are struggling with finding providers outside, and that is going to take some time with the team to try and figure out an approach to creating some referral sources and lists so that we can help give families that, if not doing it on a one-to-one basis, would be a referral source and guidance document of sorts that they can use when they need it. In addition to that, last year we came across what's called the Counselor app. And at that time, it sounded a little bizarre, I'm not gonna lie. Had a little bit of concern over using something like that. After all, an app and thinking about counseling through an app was very foreign. But this year, we took a look at it. Dr. Gallagher and I, as the representatives who created that app, to get further information regarding it. It's actually pretty cool. If you could move to the next slide, I'll help my visual. Thank you. One of the things that the developer, I guess, of the app was sharing with us is that the people who are working for them had their own experiences, either themselves or with their families, with regards to finding or seeking mental health. And with that, had shared with us, which we all have spoken about statistically across the nation, what we're facing with, especially with our youth, in terms of the crisis that is occurring in the mental health world. And so a couple of the areas that they found to be preventing people from seeking the help is that there is a cost, and that people don't have the ability very often, or some people don't have the ability to have to pay out of pocket or to even sustain the cost. Some where it was an inconvenience because even with what was available for them, some would have to travel many distances to access that support because within the area that they lived in or live in, there wasn't enough resources. So that was also one of the problems in seeking help. And then we've talked about it, and there still exists a stigma around speaking about and even seeking mental health supports. It doesn't matter what you're seeking it for, to talk about your feelings over anything, specifically even anxiety, depression, or if you have a diagnosis, there is a stigma attached to that. And slowly, I can say slowly, students are speaking more. They're asking for help more and more than I've ever seen it before, but there still exists, even within a family, some uncomfortability with discussing or letting people know within their own community even that they're struggling themselves or that their children are struggling with what could be a mental health issue. So the company, the person who developed the app, those are some of the reasons why they developed it, especially with the growing nature of people needing help. They feel or they believe that the first step is talking about it, right? Talking about what it is that you're experiencing. And then who are you talking about it with? If you're not speaking about it with your family, they have developed what is called the counselor app. And it basically is designed so that at any point in time, that if you have the app, you can reach out to a licensed mental health professional. What I mean by that is it could be a licensed clinical social worker, it could be a licensed psychologist, but the person is licensed and trained to be able to support you. And within that application, not only does it allow you to reach out to someone immediately, but you can also reach out and schedule a different time or appointment if that is what you prefer to do. It also links you to the same counselor should you want to be linked to that same counselor. There's mechanisms built into the application within the, for example, within our school system, where if in fact the student is engaging with that clinician and they find that they need or they're ready to transition back to the school to have school supportive services, there's a mechanism built into that that has to do with the connection, how you set it up for the students within, or whoever it is that you're setting it up for. So it will match you in addition to that with a counselor based on what you describe as your need or why it is you want to chat and what you want to chat about. What else did I have?
They also made a point of saying that there is a very kind of a smooth handoff. First of all, parents have to give permission for their students to engage with this at all. And that there is a smooth handoff if it gets to the point where they think that this child needs actual therapy. This is meant to be short-term, reach out, first step. And that was the concern that we both had, that we were happy to see that they thought about that. The other thing that I think that first part is really important, that these are people who are available outside of most traditional hours, and then the second one, that 88% of the students who have utilized this app have never reached out for mental health support before. So we see it as something we'd like to pilot next year, middle school and high school, and get some feedback on. But again, just another possible avenue for our kids to get support when they need it. Now, I spoke about that before. The second part of our presentation tonight, I think if it's okay with the board, we'll go right into it, then we can answer since it's really the PPS presentation, and then we can do questions following that. So Mr. DeVito, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. We'll just do a presentation and then we'll begin. So this evening we're going to talk about special education program, our special education program of pupil personnel services. So what we're proposing for next year, which is the 25-26 budget. Special education is a large function. It's in A2250, which is where you'll find it in the line-by-line budget. This is the description, special education, our proposed budget of about 22 million, what our adopted budget, our actual budget is for the current year. You see a very small variance, very small, under 0.6%, and I'll explain why that is the case. We've included occupational physical therapists in this line item. These staff members were formerly included in the grant, and now we're proposing to place the new assistant director and the new psychologist that were just mentioned in this grant. So we took some staff out, put it in the budget, switched it with some staff that you'll see in a moment who now will include in the grant, and now there's room for this new assistant director and the psychologist. Inclusion of speech teachers, these are the codes where you'll find them. So if you look at our line-by-line budget, you'll see those line items increase because they were formerly in the grant in the current year. Funding for reach counseling services has been eliminated. It was in this line item. So if you take a look again, line by line, it'll be posted online. For those of you who want to look at it, we just completed a first draft of it. So you'll be able to see that online tomorrow. And then you'll be able to actually look at those specific line items to understand why we have those changes. Also in the 2025-26 special education program proposed budget, we include funding for students who currently attend programs in public schools in other districts. That's in our current budget, but you take a look at next year's budget, you'll see that's been eliminated. That's because we're not projecting any students to attend these schools next year. Current students have completed the program that are in those schools, so you see a savings there. That helps to explain why our budget to budget for special education is relatively flat, considering the enormity of that special education function. So you see a decrease here because those students who were there will no longer be attending there next year, projected. We may have one or two that we don't know about, but at least we don't know of any at this point. Again, another decrease in out-of-district school placements. This is where that is in the line by line, based on the fact that we have certain agreements sometimes with students. Those students at the close of the year will no longer be in those STIPs. That's a decrease in that code. We do have an increase of 3 additional students projected to attend non-public schools. This is where you'll find that. Again, some decreases, some increases, but if you take a look at the different line items, that's how it all plays out. And that helps explain again why you see a relatively flat budget to budget. We also expect a decrease in projected BOCES placements, somewhat offset by an increase in expected related services. Right? So sometimes the different types of services our students receive, we anticipate an increase or a decrease depending on what type of related services based on the specific needs of those students, but overall a decrease in BOCES placements, which is the main driver in that code. We're also expecting a reduction of 1 special education teacher at Long Beach High School based on a change of needs. So that's the function 2250. We have a few other codes in what we call pupil personnel services. Now I'm going to talk about the main drivers here. You see some increases, some decreases. First is the increase in contractual nurses. In this line item, 828.15.400, which explains why our health services function increases by about 7.27%. Basically, no major difference here for psychological services because that additional psychologist, as a reminder, that we talked about is going to be covered in one of our grants. Social work services, you see a decrease here. It's not that we're decreasing social work services, it's just that now some of those social workers we plan to put in one of our grants based on some eligibility for those social workers to be put in the grant. So a decrease here in terms of what we're putting in the budget, not necessarily a decrease in FTEs or in our actual social work or social work services. It's just a shift one year to the next of what's in the grant and what's not in the grant. And then our PPS office, again, very small increase, basically based on the different salary schedule for next year. And I covered that bullet point already. This was our April 8th presentation. The next meeting, which is the Wednesday after the break, usually we have meetings on Tuesday, but because we're off the Monday, we are having our board meeting on Wednesday, April 23rd. That's when we're going to have budget adoption. So we'll talk a little bit about revenue. Hopefully, we'll have some state aid numbers. We still don't have a final state budget, So we really don't know exactly what our state aid is going to be next year yet. Maybe we'll have some information by budget adoption. If not, then we're just going to work with what we have. The budget vote and trustee election is May 20th, and the budget hearing is always the week before, on May 13th, which is an opportunity for anyone to come up and talk about the budget that the board adopted prior to the community voting on the budget by May 20th. I just want to thank Sabrina Brancaccio and her team for their help in preparing this presentation that you see here this evening. And that's it. Ready for board questions and comments.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Dr. Procaccio. Now we're going over the Wellness Center, so now we'll take questions and comments from the board. Nora?
Yeah, I have a question. First off, Michael, thank you for your presentation. And Sabrina, I have a question for you regarding the app, because I find that really interesting. Just, could you describe the process, how a kid who is maybe in need of this service, how would they navigate this? Where would they begin? Who would they go to advise them and then get the process started?
Specifically for the app, the
Yeah.
application?
Yeah.
So if we roll it out next year, then the students will all have access on a phone, and most students will have their phone, because it's only, what I understand, it's only an app for a phone. And at that point, I envision that there'll be material for families, for students to educate them on the app and how to access it, how to, once it's on their phone, what it is they'll need to do in order to get that counselor chat going, because it's a chat feature. It's not
So
a talk
I'm
feature,
assuming
it's a
that
chat
it includes getting the parental
feature. Correct.
agreement for it. Okay, great, thank you.
Ms. Conlon?
Thank you for your presentation. Sabrina, just to add on to what Ms. Belsey said, I know it's an app. So is it any AI in that at all, or guaranteed it's going to be a real person who will be texting the students?
Yes, we asked the question.
And in school, will the students see, hey, this is the app? Will there be some type of presentation for the kids in school so they start to feel comfortable with it automatically?
Yes.
So I know that it is easier for students at times to reach out via text than it is to somebody. You said something important, well, you said a lot of things earlier that were important, so don't get me wrong, but you are right, where we have to change the stigma in our community, not just in Long Beach, but in Long Island, that it's okay not to be okay. And it's not going to be an easy feat. And I'm glad that we're starting slowly with the middle school and the high school, but children also who are younger tend to have these issues. What are we, and I know we're doing the wonderful things with the nature, which I think is a great way to start, getting them outside, the caring adults, making them feel unity, but what about fourth graders and fifth graders? Because the statistics show that students are feeling these very difficult feelings at the ages of 9 and 10.
So we have actually talked a lot about that with the leadership of the PTA lately. At that age, what we really need to do is provide parents with resources. And I've heard over and over again from parents, and I know it even from my own family, that if you are a parent who knows that your child needs help, you may not know where to look for that help. Even people who are educated may not know which is the organization that's best for my child. Do they take my insurance? How do I make an appointment? Is there a waiting list? So, and that's something, when we put on there that we'd like to better facilitate that. I think we have to look at our resources as a whole and make some kind of a centralized place where parents can go to get that information. And I don't know what that's going to look like yet, and I think we have to include a variety of resources, both the ones we have partnerships with and private providers who might be willing and able to take on new patients, because that's the thing I hear over and over again. I know that my child needs counseling, I don't know where to go.
But also too, there's not having counselors.
That, exactly.
So like, is this counselor app, or like some fifth graders, a lot of fifth graders also text? Are we maybe looking to see if parents want to use that counselor app for their
I
fifth
think
graders
right
as well?
now it's not available for students below middle school.
So let's- It's just very concerning, thank you. There's a lot, Doc. They, covering mental health awareness is like, it's a big deal.
2 items is beyond below your quota, though, usually go for 2 items.
That's true. I did want to give a shout out to Mr. Swan for the snacks. I remember a few years ago, we had a middle school student who sat here and said that they wanted to have a voice. And I think Mr. DeVito and Mr. Swan took it, they went with that and enrolled with it, and now our students all have a voice. And I think that's important. We have a student here, do you feel that you have a voice as well in what is being served in our high school cafeteria?
A lot more this year, yeah, especially because we have student meetings where we can get signed out for the periods. Do you want me to speak? And we have the meeting with Mr. Swan, and all the students are able to express their concerns and their needs and their wants for the cafeteria, so I think it's gotten a lot better this year than it has.
That's good to know, thank you. No, I think that I'm very pleased in looking for the new psychologist. I think after looking over everything, I think it sounds that it would definitely help all of our students. That's it for me, Doc.
May I go, Mrs. Bates?
Yes, you may.
Just thank you for the presentation, Mr. DeVito and Dr. Brancaccio and her team, Superintendent. First, I just wanted to ask, how much is in the grant? The grant was referred to in the presentation. How much does come from the grant? Roughly.
It fluctuates, but anywhere from 1.2, I think this district's had at 1.4, but overall, I think it's about over 1.2 million. On the 611, 619 is a lot less, actually.
About 400,000, I think, 619. I know this past year we had the 611 was just about 1.1 million for the current year. And just if I remember correctly, the 619 was about 400,000.
Is there any concern that money might be intercepted or thwarted by Washington?
I'm not concerned.
You're not concerned? Okay, so we shouldn't be concerned then either. Okay. Concerning the psychologist, where is he or she going to be housed?
I don't know where she or he is going to be housed. The space is very challenging to find, so I don't know where they will be. I honestly don't.
So you won't know the first day of school where the need will be present for this person to be?
So if I were to anticipate at the end of this year, looking at projections for next year, what their evaluations look like, what the initials happens at the end of this year, I'll have a pretty good understanding of where I'll need to not house the person, but what their assignment will be.
It's been my understanding or impression for the last decade at least, that there's been a great difficulty in finding placements for students who present with special needs or special concerns. How many of those students do we have here in terms of this? It's been through no lack of diligence on our part, but the state and the county just hasn't, and BOCES, I guess, I can throw them in as well, just haven't provided the programs that our children need, our students need. So do we have a significant number of those students who are still in search of a program?
Yes.
We do. And what do we do for them?
So there's a couple of different things that we do. Sometimes we truncate their schedule, where we take a look at if shortening their day in the district makes a difference for them to be able to tolerate. And then we support that family with additional supports outside of their day. Sometimes we have to place the student on homebound instruction. Typically, it's when there's a safety issue, when there's a concern that we can't manage their behavior because it's expensive. So we've done that as well. But there are shortages of schools, preschool programs and services, and both throughout elementary and high school. We are struggling with placements.
And Dr. Ryan, if I could add, the other thing that our team has done is create programs in our own district, programs that would not have existed here 10 years ago.
And then we need staff for those programs, additional staff. Okay, thank you for that clarification. I just want to ask or express a concern about the hire of the psychologist. it seems to me that among our staff, we seem to have a severe shortage of those who are trained in drug and alcohol. And if in fact in your screening of candidates, if you could give that some kind of concern, because that too is sort of almost an epidemic, and it sort of runs hand in hand with mental wellness in terms of problems that kids present with, particularly kids in secondary school. So I would hope that there'd be some concern looking at that prospective qualification. And my last question concerns the Wellness Center. I'm glad there's a parent consent or a parent involvement in the app. So a high school kid signs up and wants to go to the wellness room. Is the parent informed of that? And if so, when is the parent informed of the student's participation in the wellness room? Or is that seen as a curricular activity like social studies and math, and that there's no need for parental consent or parental
Yeah,
understanding?
I would see that as similar to lunch, guidance, social worker. Students don't need permission to go see their guidance counselor, and parents would not necessarily be notified of that either. Again, we see this, students would have to sign into the room or have a pass from the teacher. If the student needs additional support and needs to see a counselor regularly, that's where parental permission.
So if it's a crisis situation, the student signs into the wellness room.
They would be directed to, a psychologist would be brought in. And that would be a psychologist visit. We don't see this so much as for students in crisis, Dr. Ryan.
Right.
As for students who just maybe aren't comfortable in the giant cafeteria or, want a few minutes of quiet during the study hall instead of sitting in such large room, or, are having an anxious moment and need to just, settle themselves down but are not in crisis.
I understand that's probably the script, but my script has a kid who wants to cut social studies because it's a test and goes to wellness. And then the teacher from social studies calls the parent and says, Billy wasn't in my social studies class and didn't take the test. But he was in the wellness, so how are you going to argue against that? So once again, I think it's something that has to be played out, but I hope it's not a resource room for kids who want to cut and get out of academic responsibilities to go play Parcheesi or bingo or to
And I think that's why we need a staff member to supervise it and ensure that there are protocols in place that, that we have in place now, in fact, in our other areas as well.
Okay, thank you.
So, a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank you, Michael. I want to acknowledge the special ed department, because I always think of you guys as the little engine that could. There's not many of you, but you really fight a lot of battles for us, and you do tremendous work. So thank you for all being here, and thank you, Sabrina. Every time you, Dr. Borkagia, every time you present, I always enjoy listening to you. So I do have a couple questions, sort of along the lines of what Dr. Ryan was saying. I do want to understand, is there an amount of times a student goes to the wellness center where there's maybe an alarm bell goes off?
Sure, absolutely.
And how do we qualify that? How do we qualify whether this is actually a student in crisis that is just not willing to admit it yet? Like, oh, I broke up with my boyfriend, I just need a minute. Then they come the next day, oh, I have my period, oh, I this, I
So
that.
again, I think.
Where do we know?
I think in two ways. First of all, is the child going every day at lunchtime because they just hate a large cafeteria? I wouldn't consider that a crisis moment. They're at lunch, lunch for a day long. If it is a child who's regularly presenting with some anxiety, I think the follow-up then is to that child's guidance counselor or social worker and psychologist in the building, and they follow up with a call to the parent and a conversation with the child. So it's that first step. It's, the child who gets the child is there every day, certainly there's a conversation with the BPS staff.
And there will be staff that can
Yes.
identify that. So the same
Correct.
staff will be there,
Correct.
so it won't be floating staff, so
That's right.
that
That's why we need to, we feel like we need to
permanent
assign
staff.
a permanent staff member,
Okay.
even if the BPS staff then cycle in.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And then as far as going a step further with a referral to outside, we then, so I'm understanding that we've kind of eliminated some of the services that we're getting through REACH, if I understand correctly.
I don't consider eliminating it, but as we discussed with the folks from REACH, we see what REACH is doing is very, very valuable for our community, absolutely. But what we've been seeing over the past, 5 or 6 years is kind of a conflation of in-school counseling and outside therapy, even among our own staff. I think that even among our own parent community, there may not be a clear understanding of what in-school counseling is and what external therapy is. If you know anything about therapy, it can be very difficult. You don't want to have a child in therapy and then send them back to math class. So what we're trying to do is just clarify that REACH is our external therapeutic partner. We're still talking about this, Joe's gonna come see me next week, they may even be on site, but outside of the school day, that's your.
Okay, so yeah, so that was kind of where I was going with that. So we're trying to make, if I understand it correctly, for the community too to understand, a delineation between a wellness center where it's a pause for a student to take a breath versus if you're actually having a crisis or need something that
Yeah.
requires a session, a one-on-one session.
Wellness center here, consultation with school PPS staff here, external support here.
And it sounds like we were blurring those lines before. And perhaps we were doing more therapy in the school day, or that we didn't have such clear lines.
Yes.
Am I understanding it correctly?
It is.
Okay. Okay. My next question is about the app. So, and I'm trying to remember what my question was, but I know I had a good one, so just give me a second. I think it also was regards to assuming a couple questions. So first of all, assuming a parent does not give permission, that student will not, how do we know that student did not download it and do it anyway and go behind our backs? Because apps are apps.
So it won't work on their phone unless they have permission. They can't
Okay.
download it.
Okay.
So the first stage would be a rollout to parents and an explanation of what it is. And our recommendation would be every middle school, high school parent fills out the paperwork for this app to have their child have access to it. I think for any parent, it's a tool that, why not give your kid that toolbox? When you fill out the paperwork, you fill out the parent's emergency contact and the contact person in the school. And there's a set of guidelines for when either or both are contacted. And they're really on top of any crisis, any indication of suicidal ideation or anything serious.
So if there's a suicide, if somebody calls and said, I'm about to harm myself,
They call the
they
parents.
will they also notify authorities or not?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so, and they can locate that child because of the phone.
That's
So that's a big plus. Okay, so that was another question. And then my last question, I'm sorry to be asking so many, but I think this is really important. If a student is accessing that app very frequently along the same lines, is there a tracking? Do we know? And then also, so on the same lines of that, as a district-wide pilot, how do we qualify this is working? Is there something that says a report?
Yeah, we'll get a dashboard with how many times it's been used, by, how many different students have used it, and we'll get, even the parents will get the student by student account.
Understood.
So we'll be able to see from the data how well people are using it.
And from what I understand within the company, if you will, there's also a liaison with the district that, to answer your question about if they're accessing it frequently, how would you know that, or if they need additional support, there's a person assigned to the district that will monitor that, and then there's a conversation with the districts.
I mean, I personally see this as a huge benefit, and I hope parents feel that same way. I know there is a tremendous shortage of therapists outside of school, so if this app can bridge that gap for a family, I really hope we roll this out. My hope and my ask as a board member is that we really roll this out effectively, widely, and that parents have access to it, because it'll only work if they use it. And all too often, as a mom, as kids in the district, and as a board member, I've seen things rolled out sometimes and people don't take hold of it. So that would just be my biggest challenge.
The other great advantage is the app itself is in English and in Spanish, but counselors are available in multiple languages, assuming they get notice. That's what you say when someone speaks Russian, they need to that may not be extended.
Okay, and my last question is for you, Michael. So just to clarify for me and for the public, so I see, there's that 17%, almost 18% negative, and I understand that it is because of moving over the grants, but can you give us a clearer picture? I just want to make sure we're not losing anything. So if we make everything equal and we put that into the grant, we're not losing social work services?
Correct.
Are
I mean,
we
correct,
gaining
it's no
or we're staying the
reduction, no reduction
No
in
reduction
FTEs.
and no increase?
Yeah, sometimes year to year, certain positions are put in the grant for different reasons. Sabrina and her team felt that for next year, there was a significant reason to put some of the social workers in the grant because of eligibility for that grant. And we decided to take other positions that have been in the grant in the past, such as speech teachers and some OTs and PTs that had been in the grant, to put them in our baseline budget. So it was a bit of shifting around just to make it seem more reasonable for us in terms of the criteria for the grant.
Okay, and again, just to reiterate what Sabrina had said earlier, the suggestion of adding an assistant director and a psychologist is to take some of the burden off our direct service providers so that they actually have more time.
Our small and mighty.
Yeah. No, I mean, even our social workers and psychologists, so in effect, we're giving more time for them to do direct service.
Great, okay, I think that we're done, so now we can take questions or comments about this.
Yes, and I forgot to say this in the beginning. A few meetings ago, we actually approved that instead of having people come up to the podium and say their name and address, people had said to us that because the meetings are videotaped posted online, that we didn't feel comfortable about doing that. So there are, you may have noticed over there, public comment forms. If you just fill that out and hand it to Susanna, when we do public comments, she'll call you up. And you can do it at any time during the meeting. It doesn't have to be in the beginning. And if you didn't do it tonight, it's okay. You can do it at the end. If you just wanted to roll it out, you can that's the meetings. Just a way to keep people's address.
And to be clear, it just has to have your name and your address on there, not your question. Or does it
It
have to,
does,
it does have your
well, it
question?
does only because we have a large crowd, we can organize questions, but.
Okay, so we can take questions and comments from tonight's agenda only right now from the public. Anyone?
Those of you who may not know,
Go into the mic and just turn it on so we can hear you.
just state your name and address. Those of you who may not know, I'm Dr. Joseph Smith. I'm the executive director of Long Beach Reach. My address is 54 West Olive Street in Long Beach. I've been a resident of this community for over 50 years, and I've had 3 youngsters who have gone through Long Beach School, graduated from Long Beach High School. So, I have a commitment to this community and a commitment to the school district. I think the idea of a wellness center is wonderful. I think it's a terrific idea and a terrific addition to the resources that will be available for you. So I support that completely. However, I do have to ask a question that I only learned about a week or so ago, that the relationship with Long Beach Reach, which has been in place for over 50 years, will be terminated. And I don't quite understand why, at a time when there is a heightened, everybody knows this, that there's a heightened need for mental health services, for drug and alcohol counseling services, which our agency provides, and has provided within this district for over 54 years. I'm not quite sure why that would be eliminated. I haven't really understood that. I don't know if there are further explanations for that, but to me, it just doesn't make sense. Just this school year alone, so far, we've served over 125 youngsters in Long Beach Middle School and Long Beach High School. We've provided counseling services. We've acted as a bridge to be able to motivate and encourage youngsters and families that need ongoing services to seek those services at our agency or elsewhere. And by the way, our services are offered on a very, very modest sliding scale, no charge to youngsters. Families that are involved may be charged the sliding scale based on their ability to pay. But we're committed to providing services for all who need those services. And at a time when the services are needed more than ever, both mental health and substance abuse services, I just don't see the sense in removing that. We've provided that service for 50 years to this district. And 1 week ago, I learned that that's to be terminated. Frankly, I find that offensive. I don't think that's by intent, but I don't understand it. We have been at the core of working in the mental health field in this community and in partnership with this school district. And I don't understand why that would be terminated. If it's a matter of money, which I don't think it is, but if it's a matter of money, we provided services in this district at no cost for about 40 years of the 54 years. It's only because there was a request from the district to expand the services to 5 days a week in both the middle school and the high school, at which point the district offered to contribute to the cost. And so that contract, which has remained at the same level for these last probably 15 years, has not gone up by 1 penny. And that's because of our commitment to this district and to the youngsters and the families in this district. So frankly, I don't understand it. There's a need. Everybody recognizes the need. We have a resource that has worked cooperatively with this district for all this time and provided services for the kids in this district. And now it's being terminated. It seems illogical, and frankly, potentially dangerous.
Okay, thank you so much.
Joe, again, I mean, we're gonna discuss this more next week, but we do not see it as terminating the relationship. We see it as changing the way services are delivered, both during school and after school. And you're absolutely right, it has nothing to do with money. It has to do with what we're observing in a different world than 15 years ago. And kids who are in crisis and confusion over who is supervising and managing that crisis. We need to delineate in school versus out of school more clearly. And we see this as the best way to do it. But you're coming to see me next week. Sabrina can sit with us as well, and we can talk about it.
My name is Scott Nyro. I'm at 565 East Bay Drive. I have 2 beautiful daughters that went through this school district, and they're doing very well because of the education that they got. So my question is, you've been talking about this conflating problem. Are there any studies that show that this is a problem anywhere else in the world? Or are you just saying you think that there's an issue?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, you said that there is this problem between in-school and out-of-school counseling. So what are you basing that on?
The feedback from our mental health professionals,
From who's telling you?
our mental health professionals in the district,
And what are they telling you?
that we're doing things in school that belong in external therapy.
Okay, so here's my question about that. So what you're saying is right now, we are providing a service for a child and a student to come in and say, I'm having a problem. And you're eliminating 3 social workers from the schools. It's not a straight, that's not true. By putting us out of the school, you're eliminating 3 social workers that work in the school every day. So you are reducing. So here's my question. My question is very simple. If there is a problem that way, and you decide to say, these kids cannot get that service in the school anymore. So what you're saying is, they should wait till after school. I really think you have to think about that, because in reality, you're gonna make a child, a student, whatever age, wait till after school to get help. That astounds me.
That's not true, but we'll have that conversation.
Well, then tell us how it's gonna work. Tell the people how it's gonna work. How does it work? If you say, let's say, I don't know how many people you have employed, but let's say that you have X number of people that are employed, now you have 3 less. Joe told you what the statistics are. I think the contacts are over 500 contacts, just in the last year. That's how many people we've serviced over the time. Where are those kids gonna go?
To their school.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Okay.
And I would just say to you, you can disagree, and I appreciate that, but I'm listening to the people who work in our school buildings, who are telling me that this is the best way to go for children. You can disagree, but please don't say that we're not doing what we believe is right for
I
children.
didn't say that
That's
you're not doing what you believe is right. I said, I think you should think about it.
Okay. Do we have anyone else that wants to make a comment? Thank you.
Karen Axel, 668 Lincoln. First, thank you for the presentations and for everybody who makes an effort to speak into the microphone. I know it seems silly in a small room, but when I can't come in person, I'm usually watching on the YouTube link, and it is very, very hard to hear unless you're speaking like right into it. So thank you for those who make an effort to do that on the regular. I kind of put in my comment request before the other 2 gentlemen got up to speak about research. So I think it is clear to me now that that budget item is out. Is the counselor app part of the budget? Is that part of the grant? I'm not sure if it's part of the grant. Okay. And then perhaps I missed it, but I was curious about the confidentiality of what the students put in there to the parents and to the teachers. Okay. And my other question about the, I guess for Mr. DeVito, for one of the budget items, the nurses were the biggest increase, and it said something about contract nurses. I didn't quite understand it, so I wasn't sure if that meant that we were using agency and that's the reason for the cost and we can't find full-time. I was just hoping you could explain it a little bit more.
That's correct. And I may have missed that bullet point if I did from the slides. So we have nurses on staff that we pay, they are our employees. And then we also need some nursing services on our school buses. So we need to, we contract out for those services. So we needed to make sure that the allocation was correct in our budget for next year for the amount of contract nurses that we're using. And it's predominantly on our school buses because all of our other buildings have employee nurses.
Okay, because of the nature of the position, it's not possible to fill it with a full-time person?
Well, I think it's because it changes, right? It really depends on the need of the student, whether or not that they need a nurse on the school bus, where in our school buildings, typically on a regular basis, year after year, the board has made the decision to staff those buildings with either one or more than one nurse, depending on which building it is, where the requirement for a nurse on a school bus is more fluid, and it's easier just to, as needed, use a contract nurse company for that. If I stated anything incorrectly, Dr. Marcacho, please correct me.
I'm just curious because it's a big piece of it, and I know, for my line of work, which is very different though, we have to consider, could we fill it with a part-time person, but I know you need the consistency of a nurse, of course. My last question, but I didn't put it on the comment card, but since it's part of my time, I know kind of everybody is nodding their heads and saying, when they were talking about it, it's difficult to place students. And I so appreciate that the district offers, probably more than New York State would require at a minimum for different types of settings for students. And everybody's kind of just nodding like, yes, it's very difficult. So is there any thought on how we can improve upon that?
Improve upon our,
The ability to place students who are not currently being placed.
yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately out of our control. That's based on the availability of external programs. But what we regularly have conversations about is what can we add to our repertoire so that we can serve the students in district. In district is always what we want. And that's one of the reasons we wrote and got permission to do a 4410 preschool program, because it's a shortage of preschool special ed placements on Long Island. We're one of the few districts that does that. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at. We can't necessarily control whether BOCES or other external placements happen.
I understand that. I specifically like that preschool program. I was wondering if there was anything else in the works or being thought about.
Expansion, for sure. That's safe, but thank you. It is, yeah, because we don't know exactly how. Okay, thank you.
Okay, student organizations.
How's it going, guys? I'm going to start off by discussing some of the upcoming events we have at Long Beach. So the first one, probably the biggest one before the end of the year, is our last blood drive of the year. We're aiming to get 40 to 50 units of blood from the students, and we've seen an increase in the amount of kids signing up in this blood drive compared to previous blood drives, so we're really pushing for that momentum until the final blood drive. Other things we have going on are student fundraisers in local restaurants to hopefully raise funds for student organization next year. A student who's part of the organization has recently been doing a series of bake sales to raise money for a local house fire, for a family who's just having a local house fire. And the freshmen are hosting a 3v3 basketball game. I'm not sure when the date is, but it's to help raise funds for a freshman class next year. And this past week, or I think it was last week, we had a leadership forum with student organization, and we were asked a series of questions based on the general good or bad state of Long Beach High School. And one question that was really up for debate with the students was the inclusiveness of Long Beach High School. Some said it was really good, some said they didn't feel included at all. And when the students who said they didn't feel included, when asked why they didn't participate more or why they didn't feel included, they said that it was really because a lot of the teachers don't show as much participation in high school. And a lot of them said the teachers should lead by example. Like, a lot of the students don't feel connections with their teachers. Like, we see a lot of teachers who love to participate. Like, for example, in Class Olympics, when I competed in the games, I had a couple of my teachers play with me, and I thought it was a great day. I was happy by the end of the day. I didn't have any stress, you know. It was a great time. But then you have those students who don't have those connections. And I had a meeting with Mr. Myers, Dr. Smith, and lead psychologist Dr. Moran the other day, and we were just brainstorming ideas for incentives for the teachers to kind of participate more. And one of the things we came up with that I really liked was for big sporting events to have the teachers get nominated by the students and walk out with the student's jersey as a kind of way to get them more involved. And as they do that event, they might be like, I like this, I'm gonna show up for more. And it's just a good way to get the teachers more involved, in turn, getting the students more involved. And that was.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, moving on, I think we're gonna go treasurer's report, right? For February of 2025. No action, nothing necessary. Okay, approval of minutes for executive session and regular meeting, March 25th, 2025. Executive session of April 3rd, 2024.
Motion made.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No? All right, moving on, we're gonna go to, sorry, we have to vote, my bad. Ms. Belsey,
I vote yes.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Dr. Ryan, and I vote yes. Sorry. Presentation of the superintendent.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the district clerk to read a walk-on resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Long Beach City School District hereby approves the retention of Christopher Morzak, Esquire, to conduct an investigation into personnel matters at the hourly rate of $250.
Motion made.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we're gonna vote, Ms. Belsey?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Conway? Mr. Ryan? And I vote yes.
I'd ask the board to consider item 1, certificated personnel.
Motion. Second.
Any discussion?
I just wanted to recognize Ms. Parks, thank her for many years of service at West School. We're certainly going to miss your presence at West. You've been there for a long time, and we certainly appreciate all that you did to make the kids at West just stand out and to accommodate them. So we appreciate you coming tonight. We appreciate your many years of service to the children of Long Beach, particularly to the kids at West. So thank you, and we wish you every good thing in your retirement.
I want to just echo what Dr. Ryan just said. All the years that we've worked together on CTA matters, and it's always been a pleasure to work with you. Long Beach will miss you, but I want to welcome you to the greatest club on earth. Well, part of you this spring. Thank you.
And I would just like to thank you so much for your dedication and your caring of our kids. You've been a very special teacher, and I'm sure we will always remember you with love and kindness, fondness. Congratulations on your well-deserved retirement.
I'd like to know how many years?
I've been here for 23, but overall 37. 38.
And when did you start teaching? When you were 12? I'm gonna need to know your secret of how I can retire. I'm looking at that, because you look fabulous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm a little bit surprised. All right, moving on. What are we up to? Voting. Ms. Belsey.
I vote yes.
Ms. Conway.
Yes.
Dr. Ryan.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Item 2, non-certificated personnel.
Motion made.
Second,
Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Belsey.
yes.
Ms. Conway.
Yes.
Dr. Ryan.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And I guess the board should consider items 3 through 6 together.
Motion.
Second,
Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Belsey.
yes.
Ms. Conway.
Yes.
Dr. Ryan.
Vote yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. All right, do we have any new and old business from the Board of Education?
May I just,
Can we let you go first?
I feel like that's when I go first.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, since the ELA testing began this week, in terms of, it's a concern of mine in terms of opt-outs, it's certainly been a concern for a number of years, the parents who are opting out of the testing. Did we get any numbers in terms of our students?
Well, we have not, because there's a bit of a testing debacle statewide today. So the state, you may have heard or seen reports that the computer-based testing did not work this morning, and the state kind of canceled it for today. So we'll try again tomorrow, but I suspect that that may increase our opt-out numbers, even for students who had intended to take the test, unfortunately. But we'll get back to the board with the numbers this week.
Just concerned, and maybe I may have forgotten, but we weren't concerned about our opt-out numbers prior to this year. Did we use any intervention to encourage parents or whatever to reconsider in terms of having the children actually take the assessment?
Yeah, I know the principals have reached out and tried to, encourage parents to let students sit for the test. I think our numbers, the opt-out numbers have been steadily going down over the past few years. But again, the public faith in these tests doesn't get helped when they don't work.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to give a big shout out to the middle school. The play this week, they were wonderful. So hardworking kids. The play was just fantastic. So please, Mr. Bismarck, please let them know how much I love watching them perform. It was fabulous. I also want to say I did see many of our teachers at the Guardian game this Saturday. They were really there to help show support for the community, and that was really nice to see that many of the kids were there, and they commented on how great it was to see their teachers. Just for that. Thank you. Oh, and happy vacation, everybody.
Ms. Belsey, you're good?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay. We are up to questions and comments from the public on any topic. All set? Picture?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jorge Valencia, 548 East Woodwood Street, here in Long Beach. I'm here on I'm not involved in anything. I'm just a father of 3 kids, 2 in elementary, 1 in high school. Very proud and very happy of having my kids in this district. I'm gonna read because I don't wanna forget what I'm saying. So it's 2 minutes. So on behalf of my wife, Marcela, and mine, and my own, I would like to thank the school district for having the OM project as part of the school program. I don't know if you know, but the district and the schools here did a great job in the States. So we have 4, 5 groups that are going to the boards. So that's what I want to highlight here in my speech. We came to Long Beach just a year and a half ago, and we are very grateful to being part of this community. And we feel that having our kids attending the elementary and high school is a privilege. Our fourth daughter Emilia is part of the OM program, Problem 5. We have had the opportunity to attend the parents' meetings, rehearsal sessions, and competitions, and it is inspiring the great spirit created around the project, which in coaches, parents, and kids working together towards shared success. The kids have embraced this challenge with incredible determination and commitment, having rehearsals after school, Saturdays or Sundays, working late night, making their costumes, props, preparing the scripts, all tasks that need to be completed to guarantee that pursuit success. And today, we stand witness to that success coming to life in the most remarkable ways, now not only representing LB, Long Beach, but in New York State. Kids have discovered the strengths in unity, how collaboration fosters creativity, problem solving, and trust. They have learned discipline, not as a constraint, but as a pathway to excellence and self-improvement. We see only positive results from the OM project. We have seen friendship bloom, confidence rise, and how their dreams take shape. It's incredible how this program works for them. We have watched these young minds push beyond their limits, achieving milestones once thought impossible. And all of this is because of the dedication of the incredible students, our passionate coaches, commitment from parents, and every individual who has contributed to making this a success. We think OM is more than just an educational program. It is a foundation for the leaders, innovators, and change makers of tomorrow. We are witnessing a group of kids that are in the right path of preparing to make a big difference in our society, and we think we need it. Mrs. Gallagher and everyone here, we are talking about healthy mindset, positive school environment, and skill development. I think this program, as well as LARC, is another program that my kids, the third grade is in, and also my daughter who is in high school. This program works very well. I know we have, and I see you are bringing new programs, and we appreciate that. So I just want to reinforce that this is amazing. Being there, and I have 2 mothers that were there with us, part of the teams, seeing the cohesion of the team, of the people, and what it brings to the kids, it's amazing. So I don't want to take more time. I just want to thank you, and I just want to ask more support keep the support for this, and try to make it wider for the rest of the school. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to say that, we were thrilled that 4 out of our 16 are going to Worlds, but that created a little bit of a fundraising dilemma because I think you've raised a lot of money to do it, but we're going to pay for the registration fees.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna do that.
Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you.
This is basically the intention was just please keep in mind to keep the program on because it's amazing. But I know we want to. But thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I just want to say thank you. I know you said you don't come here often, you don't speak often, but thank you for sharing the story and just bringing it to our attention and being so, how do I say it, but well spoken. It was really nice to hear. It was nice to hear how you were not only highlighting your own children, but the other children and also the district as a whole. And it is a great program, and we know that you guys are, your children, you guys, the teachers are getting a lot out of it. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for speaking up on their behalf. Okay, anyone else? Questions and comments from the public, or that's all? Good, moving on.
You might be able to get 15 grand if you want to speak.
Next up is LDCTA.
Karen Bloom, LBCTA. First, thank you for the presentation. We are very happy to hear about the wellness movement. Anything we could do for student mental health, staff mental health is awesome, and we welcome anything that you'd like to try to do, and we're here to support that fully. In addition, I would like to say a huge congratulations to one of our own over here, Parks, who has been with us for, I think we decided 13 years as our corresponding secretary, and we are very sad to see her go, but like Ms. Belsey said, you're going to join an awesome club. So congratulations and thank you. Everyone have a great spring break too. Okay.
Good evening, Keith. He's my ASDPG. I'll take 15,000 now. First of all, I congratulate Ms. Parks on retirement. Best of luck in the next chapter. I'd also like to thank Mr. DeVito, Dr. Bertaccio, and the special ed team for the presentation this evening. Thank you.
Group C? Anyone here from Group C? No, I don't think so. No. Parent PTA.
Two quick announcements. We've got the plant sale going on currently. So CCPTA is so excited. We've got 12 high school seniors getting scholarships from us because of money we fundraised. We need to keep that going. Plants are gorgeous. If you've never purchased one from Jamesport, the palm trees are insane. And tomato plants, I killed plants, and my tomato plant survived last year, so I highly recommend it. Orders are due by April 17th. And I know, Dr. Gallagher, you mentioned the book club that we have culminating with the mental forum. So it starts at the high school on April 30th. Anxious Generation is a great book. So I'm super excited, and I think there's a bunch of moms that are going like, there's an Audible, so if you don't enjoy reading, struggling my child, there's an Audible if you'd like to listen to it. But thank you so much, and having been a West parent, congratulations, Ms. Parks, you deserve it.
Okay, I think that's everything, right? Congratulations again. Motion to adjourn. Motion.
Happy vacation.